Hello, this is Veronica Martinez. My presentation is about the 2015 San Bernardino attacks. It was a Homeland Security outlook on terrorism. This terrorist attack is very dear to my heart. I did know a couple of people who worked there, and I worked a block away from the building. So let's get into it. So the abstract. This presentation is going to cover the 2015 San Bernardino attack, one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in the United States since 9/11. It includes a summary of what happened, why it's important, and the key security ideas involved. It also explains how the attack affected people, such as myself, how the government responded, and what changes were made to stop future attacks. Finally, it looks how religion religious extremists played a role in the attack and how communities reacted. As we have the San Bernardino County Shield to represent the community itself. Summary. So this was at the Inland Regional Center on December 2nd, 2015. A terrorist attack occurred in the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California. The attackers were married. They were a couple. I believe his name was Saeed Farouk and Tashin Malik. Pardon me if I didn't pronounce that right. During a meeting for the Department of Public Health, they opened fire, killed 14 people, and injured 22 others. The shooting caused panic as people tried to escape. Now, right here, I'm going to kind of include where I worked at the Department of Homeland Security at the USCIS office down the street. And when I tell you that the community, the people panicked, at my building alone, we had federal agents, we had U.S. Marshals. It was a very, how can I say this? It was a very scary uh, incident. So after the attack, Farouk and Malik tried to flee, and the police obviously chased them. Officers responded quickly, and there was a shootout between the attackers and the police. And I believe that ended in Redlands, California, if I'm not mistaken. In the end, both attackers were killed hours after the shooting. The Inland Regional Center Convention Center was still an active scene. Again, this was all over the news. The media it was a big media frenzy. It was a very broadcasted incident. Um, they were motivated by extremist beliefs linked to ISIS, which inspired them to commit this act of violence. This attack focused on the threat of terrorism from within the country and raised concern about extremist ideas can affect people. This attack shook the local community and the nation, creating a bigger discussion about safety and how to prevent similar attacks in the future. Now, we're going to get into the significance. I do have here a couple pictures of the actual scene of where it happened. We had a lot of family members crying. There was a lot of people that were distraught, that were hurt physically, mentally. It was a disturbing scene. The San Bernardino attack is important for several reasons. First, it was one of the deadliest terrorist attacks since 9/11, and we know how that attack was. I mean, it was the worst that I've ever seen, and it marking a sad moment in the fight against domestic terrorism. Second, it showed the risk of radicalization in the country, focusing on the rise of homegrown violent extremists. Now, when we say homegrown, I mean these people were here, they were naturalized citizens, and they worked here, they communicated with us all around the community, and they they were domestic terrorists. I mean, can you think about how many domestic terrorists we live upon now? Like in our neighborhood, it could be anywhere. And this incident alone, there was a big significance in this incident alone because it was so close to our community, well, my community where I live. So lastly, the attacks raised serious security concerns. about how online propaganda can encourage violence and how hard it is for the law enforcement to track these threats. I mean, we can't, the law enforcement, government agencies cannot predict everything that's going to happen, and they cannot catch everything that's going to happen. So, this incident alone, as I said, was an eye opener for a lot of people. Overall, this event stressed the need for better ways to prevent domestic terrorism and to keep the community safe. So, we get into some core ideas and theories. The San Bernardino Attack showed some important problems in managing risk and fighting terrorism. It showed that there are defaults in intelligence and that it can be difficult to identify a lone wolf attackers. Now, when we speak about lone wolf attackers, I mean these are people who alienated themselves to their apartment. I actually, I actually know somebody who lived right next to them, and so they were kind of like hermits. They stayed in the house. That nobody ever really communicated with them, even as far as at work. They never communicated with them. They weren't. They didn't speak to a lot of their coworkers, and that such. So um, we would call those lone wolf attackers, right? So the attack also pointed out that the need for better sharing of information between federal and local agencies to respond to threats more effectively. As I said, I worked at the Department of Homeland Security at the USCIS department right there down the street. In my building alone, we had Border Patrol agents, we had U.S. Marshals, we had FBI agents, and a lot of the communication was all over the place. I worked in a secure room at the time, so we had agents in that room um, trying to communicate. It was kind of their command center, and there was no communication between the local agencies and federal agencies. There was a lot of frustration that day. Again, it was just a big eye opener for federal and local agencies to kind of get a better communication, a more effective one. So, additionally, it was clear that the attackers were influenced by extremist content online. As we said, they got a lot of the information and they were trained through the computer, through media, through social media, through a outlet that produced all this radicalization. Um, Showing how much the internet can help in radicalization. Overall, these issues focus on the need for stronger strategies to manage risk and improve efforts to prevent terrorism. Now, as I said, I don't think we can ever prevent it. We can try. We can put in place. We can implement laws. We can implement a lot of things. We can implement firewalls in our internet, in our internets, and we can do all those things. But there's always workarounds. They're always going to find somewhere somehow to get in. And attack us, whether it's through internet, whether it's through as you've seen as a radicalization, it's everywhere. So we get into the impact on the citizens. As I said, it's very dear to my heart. I was really close to this scene. Thankfully, I do know people that work there, but were not injured. So the impact that it had on the citizens, it had a big impact on citizens in several ways. First, the 14 people who were killed and 22 injured, it created fear and shock in San Bernardino County. As we all know, San Bernardino is not the greatest. There is a lot of crime. A lot of people in the community have a lot of fear in itself just because of local gangs or domestic terrorism, as you can see. So this tragic event raised concerns about safety, especially at work events and public gatherings. I do know that they had stopped some public gatherings for a while there because of situations like this. A lot of people were felt insecure, uncomfortable, and there was no need. There wasn't a big need to get together in big groups. Um, Many people began to wonder how much monitoring of online activity and social media is necessary for safety, focusing on the tension between protecting the community and respecting people's rights. So there is a thin line between focusing and protecting the community, implementing things and there's a thin line between people's rights, respecting people's rights. So there still is a lot of back and forth between that. We think we find a solution and then another issue pops up. So it's kind of, like I said, back and forth. And as far as the impact on the citizens, it was a very devastating incident. So some responses and changes. The attack included several important actions and changes. Local police and FBI and the Homeland Security quickly responded, and they were there within minutes. This helped identify and stop the attackers. It was, and again, it was a road rage kind of thing. They were driving around, shooting at buildings, and I mean, it was like a scene of a movie. I couldn't even explain. But after the attacks, there was an increased focus on monitoring online activity for signs of radicalization, which I believe that when they did that, when federal agencies began to monitor online radicalization, any kind of instant that there was any ISIS related things or whatever, there was more. The federal agencies would then come in. I mean, they weren't taking no chances on nothing, and they kind of went in and identify the problem. So, showing a need for better surveillance, there was also more need to engage with communities. They did have outreaches, they did have counselors on site, they did for all the local businesses that endured all this thing that was going on. I mean, there was bullets, there was bullet fragments all over the street. I mean, there was kids that picked up bullet fragments. It was, like I said, it was very yeah, so the attack sparked discussion about stricter gun laws. As I mean, we're always looking for stricter gun laws. I mean, but then what kind of stricter gun laws are we looking at here? I mean, anybody can really get their hand on a firearm, and we can implement these laws, but that we have to find something better. And I don't know what that is, but hopefully soon. So, especially regarding people on the watch list, I do know that a lot of people on the watch list, they have, the black market. They do buy firearms overseas, or, things of that sort. So, focusing on ongoing concerns about gun control and, promoting public safety. That's key. So, some of the faith involvement, obviously, was the extremist idea. The attackers were influenced by extreme ideas and connected themselves to ISIS, which ISIS, as we know, is a violent group. They used their own twisted version of Islam to explain their actions. After the attack, many religious groups, especially Muslims, spoke out against the violence. They wanted to make it clear that the attackers' actions did not reflect the real teachings of Islam, which is a peaceful religion. Muslim communities worked hard to show they did not support these extreme views or the attack. Despite this, the attack caused more fear and mistrust towards Muslims in the U.S. This led to more hate in the Islamic community, where people were unfairly blamed for the actions of the extremists. So, again, we've seen it. We've seen a lot of people show hatred towards this community for whatever reason. They felt that because these two individuals, decided to follow through with this act, it came from the whole Islamic community, and we all know that's not true. We all know that a lot of the ISIS members, they do twist and tweak the words of the Islamic religion, and they view it as a violent um, aspect of things and not as a peaceful as the Muslim people portray themselves to be, and how they are, their teachings are. So it was a lot of hatred towards that community, and which is not fair for them, because it's not how they portray things. In conclusion, so the San Bernardino attack showed how hard it can be to deal with domestic terrorism, especially when trying to find people who are influenced by extreme ideas. It made it clear that it's tough for police to catch people who act alone and don't have a clear connections to known terrorist groups. The attack raised worries about whether current ways of stopping terrorism are working well, since the attackers were able to carry out their plans without being noticed. Looking ahead, we need better ways to handle these challenges, as I spoke about that before. We have to balance keeping the country safe, that's already hard enough, while protecting people's rights. This means making sure law enforcement agencies share information better so that threats can be spotted early. So if we can get a better communication, which I'm sure that they've already worked on that since 2015 till now, better communications between federal agencies and local law agencies, I feel like that can, you know, when they share information, they can spot things faster and, eliminate the problem. It also involves working to stop people from getting influenced by extreme ideas. Now that's a hard one because every individual is at it's on their own discretion, right? So community programs, education, and working with local leaders can help these ideas less attractive. So if we work with community leaders as they did, and there was a lot of conferences, there was a lot of, like I said, outreaches that they spoke to people about giving advice and, providing resources if somebody feels like they're, you know want to self harm or, harm somebody else. There are resources out there for them to reach out and get help. As domestic terrorism continues to change, it's important to keep improving on strategies. This includes not just better security, but also keeping an eye on social media. Social media is a very, I personally do not have social media. Social media is a very big challenge for the world today. I feel like social media um, parades different things to the younger generation of kids. So it's important for us to really, as parents as well, to really focus on what our kids are doing on social media and what they're looking at. These kind of things come from they start when we have younger children, or and they get curious and they start looking around and oh, this is good, oh yeah, they're right about this, and ISIS may make sense to them, or vice versa. This includes not just better security, but also keeping an eye on social media, as I said, and other technologies to catch potential threats before they happen. These efforts will be key to keeping people safe and stopping future attacks. So as I said, this attack was a very heartbreaking attack because it was so close to home. It was in our backyard. A lot of people that we knew, their lives changed that day, whether it be them being injured, their family member were murdered, or things of that sort. So I feel like if we can find a strategy to, and again, I'm sure that the federal agencies and local agencies are implementing things daily so that none of this stuff has happened. Thankfully, since 2015, we haven't had any terrorist attack or, on our county or city, um, which is a good thing. Those that is because there have been laws and resources and they implemented throughout the years. So that was in conclusion. Here's some of my references. I did do a lot of, me personally, I like to look at CNN. I feel like they give you a lot of information. Homeland Security, again, gave me some of the ideas and insights on this. That concludes my presentation, but I would like to tell you, Professor Dr. Queen, I have had you in a couple of my classes as a teacher, as a professor, and I would like to tell you I appreciate your teaching. I do appreciate you providing us a lot of resources and always being really open. I don't really ask questions, but you always made it more very inviting to ask questions. And I wanted to share with you, I just got accepted to the MBA program at CBU. So I do want to thank you for being my teacher and helping, coming on this journey with me. So thank you.